Imagine celebrating high school graduation with a trip to paradise, only for it to turn into an unsolved mystery that grips the world for almost 2 decades. That's the story of Natalee Holloway, and we're diving deep into the twists and turns of this captivating case.
This case is interesting, well, particularly interesting, because of how it captivated the public. For almost 2 decades, it's fueled by these constant twists and turns, and a prime suspect, whose own criminal history just adds to the intrigue. It really digs into the dark side of human nature and raises questions about justice, accountability, and the nature of truth.
So who was Natalee Holloway, and what exactly happened on that trip to Aruba?
Natalee was 18. A recent graduate of Mountain Brook High School in Alabama. She was a bright, beautiful young woman, a promising future ahead of her. She was an honor student, active in clubs and sports, and a lover of the outdoors. On a 5-day graduation trip to Aruba with over 100 of her classmates.
It sounds like the perfect carefree getaway before starting college. What went wrong?
On May 30th, 2005, the last night of the trip, Natalee was seen leaving Carlos and Charlie's. It's a popular nightclub in Oranjestad with 3 young men. Warren Vandersloot, a 17-year-old Dutch student living in Aruba, and 2 Surinamese brothers, Deepak and Satish Kalpo. That was the last time she was ever seen.
Vandersloot, in particular, became a central figure in the investigation, right?
Yes, he gave a series of conflicting statements that only deepened the mystery. Initially, he claimed they had dropped Natalee off at her hotel, but his story kept changing. This inconsistency immediately raised red flags for investigators.
So a popular, well-liked young woman vanishes without a trace, and the prime suspect keeps changing his story. I can only imagine the media frenzy.
It was intense, especially in the United States. Natalee's story, with its elements of youth, innocence, and a beautiful vacation destination, turned sinister. It had all the makings of a true crime thriller. The media coverage was relentless, fueled in part by Beth Twitty, Natalee's mother, who became a powerful advocate for her daughter. She was a constant presence on news channels, demanding answers, and keeping the case in the public eye.
So with all this attention, what were the initial steps taken to find Natalee?
The search efforts were massive. Beth Twitty flew to Aruba almost immediately after learning her daughter had missed her flight. Hundreds of volunteers, along with Aruban authorities, Dutch Marines, and the FBI, joined the search. They combed the beaches, the coastline, even nearby ponds and landfills, hoping for any sign of Natalee.
Sounds like they really spared no effort. Did they uncover any leads?
Despite the extensive search and multiple arrests, there wasn't enough evidence. Concrete evidence, that is, to charge any of the 3 men with a crime. They were arrested and released several times over the years, much to the frustration of investigators and Natalee's family.
It's heartbreaking to think of the family clinging to hope while facing those constant setbacks. The case must have been so difficult to crack. What were the challenges they faced?
One of the biggest challenges was the lack of physical evidence. Natalee's body was never found. There was little to connect the suspects to her disappearance. The crime scene, if there even was one, was never identified, making it almost impossible to gather forensic evidence.
With so little to go on, did investigators develop any theories about what might have happened to Natalee?
There were many theories, but none were ever definitively proven. Some speculated that Natalee might have drowned accidentally after being left on the beach intoxicated. Others suggested she might have been a victim of foul play, either being murdered or sold into sexual slavery. The lack of evidence made it difficult to rule anything out, which only added to the mystery and fueled speculation.
So more questions than answers, it seems. Did the media coverage help or hinder the investigation?
It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, the media attention kept the case in the spotlight, which can be helpful in generating leads and keeping pressure on authorities. On the other hand, it also created a lot of noise and speculation, which could have distracted from the real investigation.
And amid this media storm, Jorn Vandersloot was constantly changing his story. What were some of the more notable claims he made?
His accounts varied wildly. At one point, he claimed he left Natalee safely on the beach. Then he suggested she might have been sold into sexual slavery. He even participated in a Dutch TV program in 2008, where he seemingly confessed to knowing what happened, but later claimed he was lying.
He admitted to knowing and then took it back. It's hard to imagine what could have motivated such bizarre behavior.
Some psychologists suggested he might have been a classic narcissist, craving attention and enjoying the notoriety the case brought him. Others believed he might have been deliberately misleading investigators, hoping to escape justice.
It's a chilling thought. While the investigation in Aruba was struggling, did anything happen elsewhere that might shed light on the case?
In a shocking twist, 5 years to the day after Natalee vanished, Joran van der Sloot was arrested in Peru for the murder of a young woman named Stephanie Flores Ramirez.
5 years to the day. That's an unbelievable coincidence. It almost seems too eerie to be true.
It was an incredibly disturbing turn of events that further cemented van der Sloot's image as a dangerous individual. He was eventually convicted of the murder in Peru and sentenced to 28 years in prison.
So he was finally behind bars, but for a different crime. Did this Peruvian case provide any clues about Natalee's disappearance?
While van der Sloot claimed to have information about Natalee's disappearance in exchange for money, these claims turned out to be false leads. He even attempted to extort money from Natalee's family by offering false information about her remains.
It seems like he was constantly trying to exploit the situation. What about Natalee's family? Did they ever give up hope?
Absolutely not. Natalee's father, Dave Holloway, never stopped searching for his daughter. In 2012, he filed a petition to have her declared legally dead, which was granted by an Alabama judge. This was a significant step for the family, providing some legal closure, but still leaving the question of what truly happened unanswered.
It must have been bittersweet. What were Dave Holloway's efforts like after the declaration? Did he continue to investigate?
Yes, he continued to work tirelessly. In 2017, he partnered with a private investigator and uncovered potential human remains in Aruba. Unfortunately, DNA testing revealed they weren't Natalee's, another devastating blow to the family's hopes.
It's amazing to see his dedication. What happened next in this seemingly never-ending saga?
Despite the lack of progress in Aruba, U.S. authorities were building a case against van der Sloot for his extortion attempt against Beth Holloway back in 2010. In 2023, in a move that shocked many, he was extradited from Peru to the United States to face charges of extortion and wire fraud related to the Holloway case.
So even though he was already imprisoned for murder, they brought him back to face these charges. That's certainly a testament to the determination of U.S. authorities.
It really highlights the complexities of international law and jurisdiction. Even though he was serving time in Peru, the U.S. justice system saw an opportunity to hold him accountable for his actions related to Natalee's case.
What happened when he was brought back to the U.S.? Did he finally reveal the truth?
In a stunning turn of events, during the legal proceedings in Alabama, Joran van der Sloot confessed to killing Natalee Holloway.
He confessed. After all those years of denials and lies, it's hard to believe.
Yes, he confessed in a proffer letter, a legal document offering information to the prosecution in exchange for a potential plea deal. In this letter, he described how he bludgeoned Natalee with a cinder block after she refused his sexual advances and then disposed of her body in the ocean.
After nearly 2 decades of mystery, the truth finally comes out. But what does this actually mean for the case? And what happens now?
That's a question with complicated answers. There are issues of jurisdiction, double jeopardy, and Aruba's statute of limitations, which may have already expired in Natalee's case.
So even though he's confessed, he might not face any additional consequences. This feels like one of those situations where the law and a sense of justice aren't quite aligned.
That's often the case with crimes that span international borders and involve complex legal considerations. We'll delve deeper into those issues in our next segment, where we'll examine the implications of van der Sloot's confession and whether it can truly bring closure to Natalee's family and those who have followed this case for so long.
It sounds like there's still much to unpack. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Natalee Holloway case. Before the break, we left off with Joran van der Sloot's shocking confession to killing Natalee.
Yeah, it's a confession that brings up a lot of emotions and at the same time more questions. After years of denials, why would he suddenly admit to the crime? What was his motivation?
That's the million-dollar question. Some speculate that he was hoping for a reduced sentence or a transfer to a prison in the Netherlands where conditions might be more favorable. Others believe he might be experiencing genuine remorse and a desire to finally unburden himself.
It's hard to know what's going through his mind, especially given his history of manipulation. He has a proven track record of deceit and violence. That's going to make it difficult for anyone to truly understand his motives.
It certainly complicates things. His involvement in Stephanie Flores' murder in Peru only reinforces that perception of him as someone capable of terrible acts. It's going to be hard for people to believe that this confession is entirely motivated by a desire for redemption.
So let's talk about the legal ramifications of this confession. Can Joran van der Sloot be tried in Aruba for Natalee's murder, even though he's confessed in the U.S. while serving a sentence in Peru for a different crime?
That's where things get tricky. Extradition and trying someone for a crime committed in another country involves a complex web of international laws and agreements. There's also the issue of double jeopardy. a legal principle that prevents someone from being tried twice for the same crime.
So even though he confessed, he might not face any additional legal consequences in Aruba. That must be devastating for Natalee's family, to finally have the truth revealed but potentially see no legal recourse.
It's a frustrating situation, especially for a family that has fought tirelessly for justice for nearly 2 decades. However, it's important to understand the legal principles at play, especially in cases that cross international borders.
Let's talk about Aruba specifically. You mentioned something called a statute of limitations earlier. Can you explain what that is and how it might affect the case?
A statute of limitations is a law that sets a time limit for bringing criminal charges. It's designed to ensure that prosecutions occur while evidence is fresh and memories are clear. The specific time limit varies depending on the crime and the jurisdiction.
So is Aruba's statute of limitations for murder already expired in Natalee's case?
That's a key question that Aruban authorities are currently grappling with. If the statute of limitations has expired, it means they may be legally barred from pursuing charges against Vandersloot, even with his confession.
What a complicated situation. Even if the legal options are limited, can this confession at least bring some closure to Natalee's family?
It's possible knowing the truth, even if it's painful, can be a crucial step in the healing process. For many families of missing persons, uncertainty is the hardest part. A confession, even if it comes years later, can provide a sense of resolution, allowing them to finally grieve and move forward.
For Natalee's family, the focus may now shift to recovering her remains.
Right.
Is that a realistic possibility after all these years?
Vandersloot claimed he disposed of Natalee's body in the ocean. Searching for remains in the vast ocean after so many years would be an enormous undertaking, like finding a needle in a haystack.
It sounds almost impossible. Are there any technologies or techniques that could be used to improve the chances of finding her remains?
Technology has advanced significantly in the years since Natalee disappeared. There are now sophisticated sonar systems, underwater drones, and other tools that can be used to map the ocean floor and search for potential clues.
Even with those tools, it would still require a massive effort and resources. What are the chances of such a search actually happening?
It's difficult to say. It would depend on a number of factors, including the willingness of Aruban authorities to cooperate, the availability of funding, and the specific information provided in Vandersloot's confession.
Let's talk about the confession itself. What specific details did he reveal? Did he provide any information that could help locate Natalee's remains?
Unfortunately, his confession was quite vague about the specifics of how he disposed of the body. He mentioned the ocean, but didn't offer any specific locations or details that would narrow down a search area.
That's so frustrating. Feels like we're so close to having answers, yet still so far away. Even with a confession, there's this lingering uncertainty that continues to cloud the case. Are there any other unanswered questions that might shed more light on what happened?
There are always lingering questions in cases like this, especially when the events happened so long ago. One question that has come up is whether anyone else might have been involved in Natalee's disappearance or the subsequent cover-up.
There have been allegations of a cover-up, right? What's the evidence to support that theory?
There's no concrete evidence, but there have been inconsistencies in witness statements and questions about the thoroughness of the initial investigation. Some people believe that powerful individuals in Aruba might have intervened to protect Vandersloot, or others who might have been involved.
It's like one of those conspiracy theories that you hear about. But in this case, it's rooted in real events and real people's lives. It's hard to know what to believe.
It's important to be cautious about jumping to conclusions, especially without solid evidence. However, the possibility of a cover-up adds another layer of complexity to an already incredibly complicated case. It also raises questions about the nature of truth and whether we'll ever truly know everything that happened that night in Aruba.
It's almost like a puzzle where some of the pieces are missing, and we're left trying to make sense of the fragments. It's a reminder that sometimes, even with a confession, the full truth can remain elusive.
That's the nature of many criminal investigations, especially those that involve missing persons. There are always gaps in information, unanswered questions, and lingering doubts. Even with a conviction or a confession, a sense of incompleteness can persist.
It's a sobering thought, especially for those who seek clear-cut answers and a sense of closure. But perhaps that's the lesson to be learned from a case like this, that some mysteries, despite our best efforts, may never be fully solved.
That's a powerful insight. We often crave certainty and resolution, but life rarely offers those things in such neat packages. Sometimes the best we can do is to piece together the fragments of information we have and acknowledge that some questions may forever remain unanswered.
It's a humbling realization. But let's not forget that beyond the legal and investigative aspects of this case, there's the human element, the impact on Natalee's family and friends. the ripple effects of her disappearance, and the questions it raises about safety responsibility and the dark side of human nature.
You're right. Natalee Holloway's story is more than just a crime. It's a tragedy that has touched countless lives and sparked important conversations about personal safety, the challenges of navigating a foreign legal system, and the ways in which grief and trauma can shape individuals and communities.
In our final segment, we'll delve deeper into those themes, exploring the psychological impact of the case and its lasting legacy. We'll also examine the broader implications for our understanding of justice closure and the enduring search for answers in a world where they are often elusive.
Stay with us.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Natalee Holloway case. It's been a long and winding road, hasn't it? From her disappearance in 2005 to Joran van der Sloot's eventual confession in 2023. This case has gripped the world's attention and sparked so many conversations.
It's a story that has transcended true crime, becoming a cultural touchstone, reflecting our anxieties about safety, vulnerability, and the search for justice in a world where it often feels out of reach.
Yeah. Thinking about Natalee's story, I can't help but think about the impact this case has had on everyone involved. Natalee's family has endured years of unimaginable anguish, not knowing what happened, clinging to hope while facing setback after setback.
The constant media scrutiny, the pressure to find answers, the false leads, the public speculation, it's a heavy burden to bear. It makes you wonder about the long-term effects of such trauma, not only for Natalee's loved ones, but also for the investigators who dedicated countless hours to this case.
Right. It's a stark reminder that even with a confession, the scars run deep. It makes you question what true justice looks like in a case like this. Is it about legal accountability, emotional closure, or something else entirely?
That's a complex question. Joran van der Sloot is behind bars, but he's serving time for a different crime. The legal complexities surrounding his confession, the issues of jurisdiction and double jeopardy, they may prevent him from facing additional charges for Natalee's death.
So even though he's admitted to killing her, he might not be held legally accountable for that specific crime. That must be incredibly difficult for Natalee's family. What about finding her remains? Could that offer a different kind of closure? A way to finally lay her to rest?
It's possible. For some families, the need to locate their loved one's remains is paramount. It's about bringing them home, having a place to grieve, a tangible connection to the person they've lost.
But finding Natalee's remains after all this time, especially if they were disposed of in the ocean, seems like an insurmountable challenge.
It would be a monumental task, no doubt. But advancements in technology, particularly in underwater search and recovery, offer a glimmer of hope. Sonar technology, remotely operated vehicles, and other tools could be employed in a renewed effort to locate Natalee's remains.
It would require significant resources and international cooperation. But if it brought a sense of peace to her family, wouldn't it be worth it?
The value of such an effort can't be measured solely in terms of success or failure. It's about honoring Natalee's memory, respecting her family's wishes, and acknowledging the enduring impact of this case on those who have been touched by it.
Beyond the legal and investigative aspects, Natalee's story has ignited broader conversations about personal safety, particularly for young people traveling abroad. It's a reminder of the importance of being aware of your surroundings, trusting your instincts, and taking precautions.
Natalee's case has also shed light on the challenges of navigating foreign legal systems, the cultural differences that can sometimes complicate investigations, and the importance of clear communication and cooperation between international authorities.
It's a reminder that the world can be a dangerous place, even in paradise. It's also a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering love of a mother and father who never gave up hope, and the dedication of investigators who pursued justice despite countless obstacles.
The Natalee Holloway case is a stark reminder that some mysteries, despite our best efforts, may never be fully solved. But it's also a testament to the enduring power of hope, the importance of seeking truth, and the need to honor the memory of those who have been lost.
We may never have all the answers, but the pursuit of understanding, the quest for justice, and the unwavering belief in the inherent value of every human life, that's a legacy worth cherishing.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.